The quantum resonance chamber trembled, its delicate array of superconducting coils flickering with an angry red warning light. Dr. Elena Rodriguez gripped the edge of the control console, her knuckles white, knowing this was her last chance. Shutdown sequence initiated. The lab's AI droned, its emotionless voice a death knell to her decade of research. 3 hours from now, she would be unemployed, discredited. Another brilliant mind crushed by academic bureaucracy and institutional narrow-mindedness. The Institute's review board had made their decision weeks ago. Her research into quantum dimensional interfaces was too radical, too expensive, too disconnected from practical applications. Theoretical nonsense, they called it. A waste of grant money and laboratory resources. Elena knew better. The chamber's internal sensors began to pulse with an unusual rhythm. Something was different. The quantum fluctuations weren't following the expected decay pattern. Her eyes, sharp from years of studying microscopic variations, caught the anomaly instantly. A message was forming. Not in any human language. Not in any language she had ever seen before. The quantum waveforms were arranging themselves with mathematical precision, creating a communication protocol that simultaneously existed and did not exist. Her personal communication device, a heavily modified quantum encryption smartphone, began to vibrate. Not ring. Vibrate in a pattern that matched the quantum chamber's internal resonance. Outside the laboratory's reinforced windows, the sky above the Brazilian research complex began to change. Electromagnetic interference created impossible color patterns, deep ultraviolet bleeding into infrared, quantum states becoming visible to the naked eye. Dr. Rodriguez, the lab's AI interrupted. External communication protocols are being rewritten. Before she could respond, every screen in the laboratory flickered. Not a standard digital display malfunction. This was something else entirely. Mathematical sequences began to cascade, transforming from binary to something far more complex. The Andromeda Collective had arrived. Elena's mind raced. She had theorized about such an event for years, a first contact scenario that would fundamentally challenge human understanding of communication, physics, and our place in the universe. But theory was one thing. This was happening. Her fingers danced across the quantum interface, capturing every microsecond of data. The communication wasn't just a message. It was a complete information package, a dimensional transmission that carried more than just words or images. It carried possibility. The laboratory's quantum resonance chamber began to hum, a sound that wasn't a sound, a vibration that existed beyond traditional acoustic understanding. Elena realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. The message was reformatting global communication systems, inserting itself into infrastructure with surgical precision. Satellites, telecommunications networks, internet backbones, military communication grids. Everything was changing. A holographic projection materialized in the center of the laboratory. Not a typical hologram. This was a quantum projection that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Translucent yet solid. Present yet somehow distant. A figure resolved. Humanoid, but distinctly alien. Its form seemed to shift between geometric possibilities, as if its very existence was a mathematical equation being constantly solved and resolved. Humanity, the projection spoke. Though spoke was inadequate to describe the communication. It was more like the universe itself was articulating a complex thought. Your isolation is concluded. Elena's breath caught in her throat. First contact, but not the way anyone had ever imagined. Her smartphone continued its strange vibration. A message was forming on its quantum encrypted screen. Not text, not an image, but a complete informational package that her brain was struggling to process. An ultimatum, a challenge, an invitation, and a warning. The quantum chamber sensors were going wild, recording data that would take centuries to fully analyze. Elena knew with absolute certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. The Andromeda Collective had chosen her, but why? As the holographic projection began to unfold its complex message, Elena Rodriguez understood that her entire life had been preparation for this moment. Her dismissed research, her unconventional theories, her relentless pursuit of understanding quantum possibilities. First contact was here, and humanity's first representative was about to change everything. The underground research bunker hummed with nervous energy. 6 brilliant scientists from 6 different disciplines sat around a circular table, each looking like they'd been dragged through hell and back. Dr. Marcus Chen, a quantum computational theorist, adjusted his glasses for the 3rd time in as many minutes. "The data is impossible," he muttered, more to himself than to the others. Elena Rodriguez leaned forward, her fingers tracing holographic projections that danced between them. Quantum signatures that defied every known law of physics. The Andromeda Collective's transmission had become a living puzzle, consuming their every waking moment. "Not impossible," she corrected, "just beyond our current understanding." Dr. Aisha Kapoor, a particle physicist with a reputation for brutal analytical precision, scoffed. "Beyond understanding. It's rewriting fundamental communication protocols across every global network. This isn't a message. It's an invasion." The bunker's security systems suddenly flickered. Not a standard interference, something more deliberate. A quantum resonance that shouldn't exist rippled through their equipment. "We're being watched," whispered Dr. Viktor Volkov, a Russian cybernetics expert whose hands never stopped moving, constantly modifying detection equipment. Elena knew he was right. The alien transmission wasn't just a communication. It was a probe, testing humanity's capabilities, searching for something specific. Her personal quantum-encrypted device began to pulse again. A message fragment, mathematical in nature, yet carrying an emotional undertone that felt almost like anticipation. "We need to assemble a full simulation," Marcus suggested, his fingers already dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. "If we can recreate even a fraction of the transmission's structural integrity." A violent tremor shook the bunker. Not an earthquake. Something else entirely. Outside their reinforced walls, global communication networks began to fragment. Stock markets fluctuated wildly. Military communication grids dissolved into quantum noise. Satellites began to realign themselves in patterns that suggested an intelligence far beyond human comprehension. "They're testing us," Elena realized. "This isn't just first contact. It's a systematic evaluation." Dr. Camille Andrade, a Brazilian neurobiologist specializing in information theory, had been silent until now. His eyes were fixed on a series of complex neural mapping displays. "The transmission is adaptive," he said quietly. "It's learning. Not just transmitting information, but absorbing our response patterns." Elena's mind raced back to her dismissed research, theories about dimensional communication that had been laughed out of every scientific conference, theories that suggested intelligent communication could exist across multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Her smartphone vibrated again. This time, the message was different, a sequence of quantum coordinates that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. A location. A challenge. "We need to go there," she said suddenly. The other scientists looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "Coordinates in the Amazon rainforest," Victor translated, his fingers already running complex verification algorithms. "Precise to within 3 quantum micrometers." Dr. Kapoor's eyes narrowed. "This could be a trap. Or an invitation," Elena countered. The bunker's secure communication channels erupted. Government agencies, military intelligence, scientific institutions worldwide, all demanding answers, all feeling the quantum disruption. But Elena knew they were missing the point. The Andromeda Collective wasn't just making contact. They were selecting, searching. And for reasons yet unknown, they had chosen her team. Marcus's simulation began to take shape, a 3-dimensional representation of the transmission that looked like a living, breathing mathematical organism. It shifted, pulsed, evolved. "We're going to need more processing power," Victor muttered, already rerouting military-grade quantum computers to their research. Dr. Andrade's neural mapping showed something extraordinary. The transmission wasn't just communicating. It was probing human cognitive patterns, searching for something specific within their collective consciousness. Alina touched the holographic projection. For a brief moment, she felt something touch her back. A consciousness, a presence, a challenge. The first phase of contact was complete. The real test was about to begin. The Amazon rainforest breathed with an unnatural silence. Alina Rodriguez stood at the edge of a clearing that shouldn't exist. Perfectly circular. Quantum sensors embedded in her specialized research gear screamed with impossible readings. The ground beneath her feet existed in multiple states simultaneously, solid yet fluid, present yet somehow displaced. "This is beyond theoretical physics," Dr. Marcus Chen muttered, his handheld scanner flickering erratically. "These quantum signatures suggest a dimensional interface that defies every known principle of space-time." Dr. Aisha Kapoor was less impressed with the scientific wonder and more concerned with immediate survival. Her military training kept her scanning the surrounding jungle, watching for potential threats. "We shouldn't be here," she whispered. "This feels like a trap." Viktor Volkov's cybernetic augmentations were going haywire. Microscopic neural interfaces designed to process complex data streams were overloading, creating a feedback loop that made him twitch involuntarily. "Something is watching us," he said, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and primal fear. The quantum coordinates had led them here, a remote location deep in the Brazilian rainforest, miles from any established research station or human settlement. Alina's modified smartphone continued to pulse with an irregular rhythm, synchronizing with the strange energy permeating the clearing. Dr. Camille Andrade was meticulously collecting soil and atmospheric samples. "The quantum coherence here is unprecedented," he reported. "It's as if this location exists both inside and outside our current understanding of dimensional physics." Suddenly, the clearing began to shift. Not visually, not in any way that could be easily described. The very fabric of reality seemed to ripple, like a stone dropped into a multi-dimensional pond. Alina's research equipment started to reconfigure itself, quantum circuits rearranging with a mind of their own. "Everyone stay calm," Alina commanded, though her own heart was racing. A holographic projection emerged, not from any visible device, but seemingly from the very quantum fabric of the location. Geometric patterns formed, collapsed, and reformed. Mathematical sequences that spoke of communication beyond human language. The Andromeda Collective was communicating again. But this time, it was different. More direct. More personal. Alina's quantum encrypted device began to download, if download was even the right word, a massive informational package. Not data in the traditional sense, but a complete experiential transmission that threatened to overwhelm her cognitive processes. Memories that weren't her own began to flood her consciousness. Glimpses of stellar civilizations, dimensional warfare, cosmic migrations that spanned millions of years. The Stellar Gateway Network, not just a transportation system, but a complex living network that connected entire civilizations across multiple dimensional planes. And a fundamental flaw, a critical vulnerability that threatened everything. "The gateways are dying," Alina whispered, her voice carrying a weight of cosmic understanding. Marcus's scanner began to compile the transmission, creating a visual representation that looked like a living, breathing cosmic map. Dimensional interfaces that connected star systems began to appear, intricate, beautiful, and horrifyingly fragile. "This is impossible," Aisha muttered, but her scientific training kept her recording every microsecond of data. Victor's cybernetic systems were creating their own interpretation, a holographic model that showed the gateway network's structural weaknesses, quantum resonance points that were slowly, inexorably breaking down. Dr. Andrade's neural mapping equipment captured something extraordinary. The transmission wasn't just sharing information. It was testing them. evaluating humanity's potential to understand a cosmic problem that had defeated countless advanced civilizations. The clearing's quantum signature began to destabilize. Time and space became fluid concepts. Elena understood now. The Andromeda Collective hadn't just made contact. They were looking for a solution, and they believed humanity, or more specifically, this team, might be their last hope. We've been chosen, she realized, not just to witness, but to solve. As the holographic projection began to collapse, a final sequence of quantum coordinates burned themselves into Elena's consciousness. Another location. Another piece of the cosmic puzzle. The real work was about to begin. Humanity's first true test of cosmic scientific potential had just been initiated. The United Nations Special Scientific Council chamber erupted in chaos. Impossible. Ambassador Heinrich Müller slammed his hand against the diplomatic console, his face a mixture of rage and terror. You're suggesting that an entire galactic transportation network is on the brink of collapse. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood her ground. Behind her, a holographic display showed the intricate quantum vulnerabilities of the Stellar Gateway Network, a cosmic infrastructure more complex than any human had ever imagined. Not suggesting, Elena replied coldly. Demonstrating. The room fell silent. Representatives from every major world power stared in disbelief. Military strategists, quantum physicists, diplomatic attaches. All of them faced a reality that challenged everything they understood about human potential and cosmic engineering. Dr. Marcus Chen stepped forward, activating a series of quantum simulations that danced between dimensions. The Andromeda Collective's gateway network isn't just a transportation system, he explained. It's a living quantum ecosystem, and it's dying. Aisha Kapoor, dressed in her military research uniform, brought up tactical overlay maps. This isn't just a scientific problem, she interjected. This is an existential threat. If the gateway network collapses, entire civilizations could be stranded. Entire species could go extinct. Viktor Volkov's cybernetic interfaces were working overtime, processing quantum data streams that would have melted standard computer systems. His augmented eyes flickered with impossible color patterns as he interfaced directly with the presentation. The vulnerability, Victor explained, exists at the quantum resonance level. It's like a microscopic fracture in the fundamental structure of interdimensional travel, one that has gone unnoticed by countless advanced civilizations. A holographic representative of the Andromeda Collective materialized, a quantum projection that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Its form shifted between geometric patterns, communicating in a language that was simultaneously mathematical and emotional. Humanity, the projection stated, its voice a complex harmonic that seemed to bypass audio perception and communicate directly with cognitive centers. You are our unexpected solution. Ambassador Müller looked like he might have a heart attack. Our solution? We can barely manage our own planet, and you're suggesting we can fix a cosmic transportation network. Dr. Camille Andrade stepped forward, his neural mapping equipment creating intricate visualizations that showed human cognitive patterns in comparison to the alien transmission. We're unique, he said quietly. Our ability to conceptualize problems outside linear thinking makes us ideal problem solvers. The room tensed. This wasn't just a scientific presentation. This was a cosmic job interview for the entire human species. Elena's quantum encrypted device began to pulse. Another transmission was forming, this time, a series of dimensional coordinates that suggested multiple potential intervention points in the gateway network. We'll need complete global scientific collaboration, Elena announced. Every major research institution, military resources, quantum computing networks. We're talking about a project that will define humanity's place in the cosmic ecosystem. The Andromeda Collective's projection began to deconstruct the gateway network's quantum structure, revealing layers of complexity that made human technological achievements look like child's play. You have 37 solar cycles, the projection stated. A countdown began to materialize. not in standard time, but in quantum probability waves that suggested multiple potential futures. Ambassador Mueller found his voice. 37 solar cycles. That's approximately 73 Earth years. The alien projection shifted, acknowledging the translation. Precise. Your species must develop the capability to stabilize or redesign the quantum infrastructure. Failure is not an option. The room descended into controlled pandemonium. Diplomatic channels lit up. Military strategists began calculating resource allocations. Scientific institutions worldwide would be redirected toward this singular, impossible goal. Humanity had just been given its first true cosmic challenge. Elena Rodriguez looked at her team. They were no longer just scientists. They were the architects of humanity's first true interdimensional mission. The real work was about to begin. The first psychological attack came 3 weeks after the UN presentation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in her reinforced research facility, watching as global scientific networks began to fragment. It wasn't a traditional cyber attack. Something far more insidious was happening. Research papers disappeared. Not deleted, mathematically rewritten at their fundamental source. Quantum databases began to shift, their informational content subtly altered in ways that would drive lesser minds to madness. "They're testing us," Elena muttered to Viktor Volkov, who was battling the informational assault with his cybernetic interfaces. Viktor's augmented eyes flickered with impossible color patterns. "Not just testing," he corrected. "Evaluating. The Andromeda Collective is running a massive cognitive stress test on humanity's scientific infrastructure." Dr. Marcus Chen's holographic workstation began to destabilize. Quantum simulations of the Gateway Network twisted and warped, mathematical models collapsing into impossible geometries. "This is deliberate," he said, his voice tight with controlled panic. "They're probing our cognitive limitations." Aisha Kapoor had transformed the research facility into a hybrid scientific military command center. Military-grade quantum encryption systems battled against the alien information assault, creating a digital war zone that existed beyond traditional understanding. Psychological warfare, she observed clinically, but with scientific precision. The attack wasn't just technological. It was deeply, profoundly psychological. Research teams worldwide began to report similar phenomena. Scientific papers would change mid-reading. Experimental results would spontaneously reconstruct themselves. Entire research databases would momentarily exist in multiple contradictory states. Dr. Camille André's neural mapping equipment captured something extraordinary. The informational assault wasn't random. It was a systematic evaluation of human cognitive flexibility. "They're searching for something," Camille realized. "Not just testing our technical capabilities, but our ability to conceptualize problems outside linear thinking." Elena's quantum encrypted device began to pulse. Another transmission from the Andromeda Collective. This time, a complex mathematical challenge that seemed to exist simultaneously as a communication and a test. The challenge was elegant in its complexity. A quantum puzzle that required simultaneous multidimensional thinking. Traditional approaches would fail instantly. Linear reasoning would collapse. "This is their real test," Elena said quietly. The research team worked in perfect synchronization. Years of collaborative research had transformed them from individual scientists to a collective cognitive unit, where one mind would fail. Their combined approach might succeed. Victor's cybernetic interfaces began to create impossible computational models. Marcus developed quantum simulation frameworks that seemed to bend the very rules of mathematical logic. Aisha applied military strategic thinking to the informational assault. Campbell mapped the cognitive approaches, identifying potential breakthrough paths. And Elena saw the pattern. The Andromeda Collective wasn't just testing their scientific capabilities. They were evaluating humanity's potential for collective problem-solving. Our ability to transcend individual limitations. Hours became days. The informational assault continued. Global scientific networks teetered on the brink of collapse. But humanity adapted. Research institutions began to collaborate in ways never before seen. Competitive boundaries dissolved. Scientific ego gave way to collective problem-solving. The challenge became a global cognitive event, with teams around the world contributing to a massive distributed solution. They want to see if we can think beyond our limitations, Elena realized. If we can become more than the sum of our individual parts. The quantum challenge from the Andromeda Collective was both a test and an invitation. A cosmic interview for humanity's potential. As the final computational models began to take shape, Elena understood something profound. This wasn't just about solving a technological problem. This was about proving humanity's worth as a cosmic species. The psychological warfare had become a transformation, and they were going to win. The dimensional cascade began without warning. First, it was a subtle ripple. Quantum monitoring stations worldwide detected microscopic fractures in the fabric of space-time. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched in real time as the first stellar gateway began to destabilize, a massive interdimensional transportation hub located in the Tau-Ceti star system, over 12 light-years from Earth. Structural integrity failing. Viktor Volkov's cybernetic interfaces translated the alien monitoring systems. Quantum resonance points are collapsing at an exponential rate. The holographic display in their research facility showed the gateway's destruction in horrifying detail. It wasn't a simple mechanical failure. The entire dimensional interface was unraveling. Mathematical structures dissolving. Quantum pathways collapsing into impossible geometries. 73 billion sentient beings, Dr. Camille Andrade whispered, his neural mapping systems tracking the cascading dimensional failure. Potentially stranded. Potentially lost. Dr. Marcus Chen's quantum simulation models began to pulse with frantic energy. This is happening faster than our projections, he said, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and pure terror. The network's structural vulnerabilities are propagating exponentially. Aisha Kapoor was already mobilizing global resources, military communication networks, scientific institutions, quantum computing centers, all redirected to understand and potentially halt the dimensional collapse. Elena's quantum encrypted device began to pulse with an increasingly urgent rhythm. The Andromeda Collective was watching, waiting, testing. They knew, she realized. This isn't just a potential failure, it's a deliberate stress test of the entire gateway network. The destruction of the Tau-Ceti gateway was just the beginning. Monitoring systems began to show similar quantum destabilization points across multiple star systems, a cascading failure that threatened to unravel the entire interdimensional transportation network. Billions of civilizations, trillions of lives, all dependent on a transportation system that was now coming apart at its most fundamental quantum level. We need a radical approach, Elena announced, her mind racing through impossible computational models. Victor's cybernetic systems began to compile data from the collapsing gateways. Each failure revealed more about the network's underlying structure. Each dimensional breach provided another piece of the cosmic puzzle. Dr. Andrade's neural mapping equipment captured something extraordinary. The gateway network wasn't just a transportation system. It was a living, adaptive quantum ecosystem, and it was dying. Traditional repair methods won't work, Marcus calculated. His quantum simulations showed multiple potential intervention points, each more complex than the last. We're talking about rebuilding fundamental dimensional infrastructure. The first human intervention came from an unexpected source. A team of theoretical physicists in Sao Paulo, working in collaboration with quantum engineers from Tokyo, developed a radical quantum stabilization protocol. It was elegant in its simplicity and horrifying in its complexity. Instead of trying to repair the existing gateway network, they proposed creating a completely new dimensional interface, not a modification, a reimagining. Elena saw the potential immediately. We're not just repairing, she explained to the Global Scientific Council. We're redesigning the fundamental concept of interdimensional transportation. The Andromeda Collective's quantum projection materialized, a complex geometric entity that seemed to pulse with anticipation. Proceed, it communicated, the message simultaneously a challenge and an invitation. As more gateways began to collapse, humanity's most ambitious scientific project began to take shape. Not just a repair mission, a complete reconstruction of cosmic transportation infrastructure. The dimensional cascade continued. But now, humanity was fighting back. The real test was just beginning. The quantum intervention chamber pulsed with an energy that defied conventional physics. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter, surrounded by a team that had become more than colleagues. They were humanity's last, best hope. Massive quantum computational arrays stretched beyond the reinforced walls of the facility, a global network of scientific potential concentrated into a single point of possibility. Initiating dimensional reconstruction protocol, Viktor Volkov announced, his cybernetic interfaces merging with systems that pushed the boundaries of human technological understanding. Dr. Marcus Chen's fingers danced across holographic interfaces, creating mathematical models that seemed to breathe with living complexity. Quantum stabilization networks are online, he reported, his voice tight with concentration. We have one shot at this. The Andromeda Collective's quantum projection washed, a geometric entity that existed simultaneously as observer and potential participant. Its presence was a constant reminder of the cosmic stakes. Aisha Kapoor had transformed the facility into a hybrid command center. Military precision merged with cutting-edge scientific innovation. Quantum encryption systems created layers of protection that would have been inconceivable mere months ago. Dr. Camille Andrade's neural mapping equipment captured something extraordinary. The entire human effort was becoming a collective cognitive event. Individual minds merging into a singular, focused consciousness. Dimensional breach point identified. Elena called out. The holographic display showed a critically damaged section of the gateway network, a quantum wound that threatened to unravel entire civilizations. Their approach was radical. Instead of attempting to repair the existing network, they were going to rebuild it from the ground up. A complete reimagining of interdimensional transportation. The first phase began. Quantum entanglement protocols that had taken decades to develop began to activate. Computational models that integrated biological cognitive patterns with quantum computational systems came online. It was a fusion of human creativity and technological precision that the Andromeda Collective had never anticipated. Initiating dimensional restructuring, Victor announced. The room began to vibrate at a frequency beyond normal perception. Quantum states began to shift. Mathematical possibilities became tangible realities. The Andromeda Collective's projection suddenly became agitated, if such a term could be applied to a multidimensional geometric entity. Its quantum signature began to fluctuate, responding to humanity's unprecedented approach. Elena understood now. This wasn't just a technological challenge. It was a fundamental reimagining of cosmic infrastructure. We're not repairing, she explained to her team. We're evolving the entire concept of dimensional transportation. Quantum pathways began to reconstruct themselves, not in the rigid, predetermined patterns of the existing network, but in a fluid, adaptive system that could learn, modify, and grow. The facility's quantum sensors went wild. Dimensional barriers began to become permeable. Not just transportable, but fundamentally reconfigurable. They're watching, Marcus realized. The entire Andromeda Collective is observing our approach. Aisha's military strategic thinking had been crucial. They weren't just solving a technical problem. They were engaging in a form of cosmic negotiation, proving humanity's potential as a species capable of solving problems that had defeated countless advanced civilizations. The dimensional reconstruction entered its critical phase. Quantum pathways that had been collapsing began to stabilize, but not in their original form. They were becoming something new, something adaptive, something alive. Maintaining quantum coherence, Victor reported, his cybernetic systems pushing beyond their designed limitations. The Andromeda Collective's projection began to change. No longer just an observer, now a participant. Studying, learning, Elena Rodriguez realized they were doing more than saving a transportation network. They were rewriting the fundamental rules of cosmic infrastructure. The final quantum cascade began. Humanity held its breath. 73 years after the initial contact, humanity stood transformed. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now in her late 90s, her body sustained by quantum adaptive medical technologies, watched the final presentation of the Stellar Gateway Reconstruction Project. The world around her was unrecognizable from the planet she had known decades ago. The quantum intervention had changed everything. What began as a desperate attempt to save an interdimensional transportation network had become a fundamental reimagining of human potential. The team that had started as 5 individual scientists had become something more, a living testament to collective human innovation. Viktor Volkov, his body now more quantum interface than human, stood beside her. Cybernetic augmentations had long since merged with his biological systems, creating a living bridge between human cognition and cosmic understanding. Dr. Marcus Chen's quantum computational models had revolutionized not just transportation, but the entire concept of information transfer. Entire civilizations now used communication systems derived from the Gateway Reconstruction Protocols. Aisha Kapoor, now the head of the Global Scientific Coordination Council, presented the final report. The dimensional network was no longer just a transportation system. It was a living, adaptive ecosystem that continued to evolve. We didn't just repair a network, she explained to the assembled representatives of hundreds of cosmic civilizations. We created a new form of interdimensional communication. The Andromeda Collective's quantum representation materialized, no longer a distant, incomprehensible entity, but a collaborative partner. Their geometric form had changed, influenced by decades of interaction with human creativity. Dr. Camille Andrade's neural mapping research had become the foundation of interspecies cognitive understanding. What began as a method to solve a cosmic problem had transformed into a new field of study that bridged biological and technological consciousness. Elena reflected on the journey. The initial contact had been a test, a challenge. The Andromeda Collective had believed humanity was just another emerging species, limited by linear thinking and technological constraints. They were wrong. The Gateway Reconstruction had become more than a technical solution. It was a statement of human potential, a demonstration that creativity, collective thinking, and adaptive problem-solving could overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. Civilizations across the cosmic network now studied the human approach, a term that had become synonymous with innovative problem-solving and transformative thinking. The final report, Victor announced, his voice a perfect blend of human emotion and quantum precision. Holographic displays showed the transformed Gateway network, no longer a rigid infrastructure, but a living, adaptive system that could reconfigure itself. Quantum pathways that learned. Dimensional interfaces that evolved. Aisha stepped forward. We didn't just save a transportation network, she said. We demonstrated a new way of understanding cosmic infrastructure. The Andromeda Collective's representative pulsed with what could only be described as respect. Their geometric form shifted, acknowledging the profound transformation. Elena Rodriguez looked at her team. They had become more than scientists. They were architects of a new cosmic understanding. Humanity's greatest strength, she said quietly, a statement that would be recorded in countless historical archives, is our ability to see beyond what exists, to imagine what could be. The quantum projection of the Andromeda Collective responded, not with words, but with a complex mathematical sequence that was simultaneously a congratulation, an acknowledgement, and an invitation. There would be more challenges, more cosmic problems to solve. Humanity was ready. As the presentation concluded, Elena Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. They had done more than save a transportation network. They had changed the universe's understanding of what was possible.